Bonjour à tout le monde. On va parler en anglais. So, we have the pleasure to be here today and to face a new subject about the future regulation in Europe. And actually is rather hot subject because we are going to talk actually about vulnerability and how vulnerability can be faced by enterprises that has to develop services, how they develop a piece of hardware. So on the coming years, we need to tackle all these challenges, how to reduce in Europe vulnerability, how to acknowledge the capacity of the industry to face this challenge. I have the pleasure to share these thoughts with my colleagues here that I'm going to introduce soon. And we are going to discuss all together what is the future in Europe about vulnerabilities, resilience, and how these topics are going to be put in place by industry. I have the pleasure to introduce Mr. Tommaso Bernabò from DG Connect, European Commission, and Luca Nicoletti from the Agency of Cybersecurity, Italy. Why there are two guys are here? Because Tommaso is the policy officer of the CRA, Cyber Resilience Act, and Mr. Nicoletti is managing an important project that will help our community in Europe to start to put in place this strategy. Okay, so I leave immediately the floor to Tommaso, and I will kindly ask him what is the general strategy of this CRA. So can you introduce a little bit what is the idea behind and what are the next steps for the implementation of this act?
Absolutely. Thank you, Carmelo. And it's great to be here. So very happy about that. So indeed, what is the Cyber Resilience Act? The Cyber Resilience Act is a regulation, first and foremost. So it is directly applicable in all the member states. It doesn't need to, unlike maybe you're familiar with the NIS directive, it doesn't need to be transposed into national law. It is automatically applicable. And it sets horizontal, essential cybersecurity requirements on all, they're called products with digital elements. So all pieces of hardware and software that are sold in the Union as separate elements. And these products need to comply with the essential requirements that are set in the CRA. So there will be a legal requirement for manufacturers, companies that sell products, to ensure that those products encrypt data. Those products have mechanisms to ensure automatic security updates, to ensure that they minimize the use of data, to ensure that they protect the confidentiality of data at rest. So just a series of high-level, horizontal, technology-neutral requirements that will tell the manufacturer this is what you need to do when you want to sell a product in the EU. The functioning of the CRA is indeed that the manufacturer will be required to do a risk assessment to understand what the risk profile of the product that they are developing is, and therefore, as a consequence of what that risk profile is, implement the essential requirements in a manner that is proportionate to the risks, to make it concrete. If you're selling a hardware product, let's say a router, for a house, the risk profile of that router, so for a consumer client, it's significantly lower than if that router is meant to go into a nuclear power plant. So the way that you implement these horizontal technology-neutral essential requirements will also be different on the basis of what that risk assessment is. And then once you've sold the product, so you've made sure that the product ticks the essential requirements and responds to certain security objectives, you also have certain obligations during a product's life cycle. So you will need, as Carmelo was hinting at, you will need to address vulnerabilities that may emerge after you've sold the product. Because obviously cybersecurity does not stop at the moment of sale, like, especially if we're talking about software, but also hardware. Vulnerabilities actually most likely emerge during the product's life cycle. So the Cyber Resilience Act sort of forces manufacturers, requires manufacturers to deal with the vulnerabilities to ensure that they are patched and to address them. So it's quite an ambitious framework because it has a very broad scope. It covers all hardware and software products that are placed separately on the market. So we're talking about from the basic components of most of the hardware items that we're familiar with. So from a microchip or a smart card, the secure element, all the way to the final smartphone that you hold in your pocket. But also, it also applies to every piece of software that is sold as a product, not as a service. So from a mobile app to a game or to even an operating system would be considered a product under the CRA. So quite a broad framework. What are the key dates that will make the CRA a reality? So it entered into force late last year, so in December 2024, which means that you can consult the text, it's stable, it's published in the official journal of the Union, and it has a transition period of 3 years. So manufacturers will not be asked to comply until December 2027. But every product that is sold after 11th of December 2027 will need to comply with the CRA. And therefore, it is important to start the compliance journey early. How do you comply? In most cases, for the vast majority of products, it will be a self-assessment. So the manufacturer will be asked to document how they've implemented the essential requirements and therefore how they comply with the regulation. But for a limited number of products, there will also be the involvement of a third-party conformity assessment body, what is called a CAB, that will need to ensure and check the product's compliance with the regulation. Maybe with this, I will stop this brief introduction, just to say that, of course, it is a compliance effort, and that is why the Commission is trying to fund various tools that can be used to help companies in their compliance journey, and this is why we're here to talk about the Secure project.
Okay, thank you. Very interesting. I note something that I will come back later with you, because you touched some point that I think could be interesting to explore a little bit more in detail. But now I would like to know from Luca what is about the project security, what is about, and what is the relation between the act from the European Commission and the activity that the project or the goals, the objectives that you want to achieve.
Thank you very much, Carmelo, and thank you everyone for being here this afternoon. So the Secure project is the first project that has started answering to a debt call from the ECCC that the Commission decided to empower in order to help our companies all over Europe to comply to this new regulation. Because as Tommaso was saying, this is a new regulation. It is really impactful for the companies because, yes, as Tommaso was saying, the requirements are, let me say, basic requirement in some sense, but for our small and medium enterprises, even as a basic requirement could be difficult to achieve, to fulfill. And yeah, there are 2.5 years starting from now, and it's not that huge amount of time that we have in front of us before that the legislation becomes operative. So the basic idea behind the Secure project is first and foremost to build a platform where all of our companies around Europe can find all of the documentation, all of the information, some short training course to go through in order to have all of the possible information they need in order to understand what CRA is, how to tackle the challenges that the CRA will pose to our companies. Once again, from my observation in Italy, I see, but I think that this is quite common all over Europe, that this new regulation is not fully understood by companies. They don't even know that there is this new thing that is coming. Most of our companies right now are focused on the NIS2 directive, and this is correct. But CRA is much broader. Only a small amount of companies. In Italy, you have to imagine, we have around 4.5 million of small and medium enterprises. And only 25,000 companies, more or less, will fall below the NIS2 directive umbrella. So the scope of the CRA is much broader. For sure, not all of these 4 million companies will have to comply to these new requirements, but we believe that most of them will have this problem/opportunity, because from our point of view, it's an opportunity. Because, you know, in our world, I think more or less most of the products that we buy in some way have some pieces of software inside. It's very, very difficult right now to buy something with a bit of complexity that hasn't a piece of software inside. All of these new products will have to be certified in some way with a self-assessment in some cases, and we need to teach our companies how to do a self-assessment. Or in other cases, a small amount of cases, there will be a third-party body that will be responsible for the certification. And once again, we need to do our homework in the member states in order to find out which are these evaluation bodies. So the Secure project, on one side, will provide all of this kind of information. On the other side, we will manage, I have to say, unfortunately, small amount of money, because we have around 16.5 million to fund projects from the companies to comply to the CRA. We will fund all of the companies that will apply through this platform that we are setting up. We hope that we will get good project. Which kind of project are we expecting? For sure, risk assessments, I don't know, training, for sure it's another one. Penetration testing is another service that could be useful for our companies. The point is that, yes, it's important to know that they are cascading funds. They are not under the state aid legislation, so it's not a state aid. It's something that could be taken even if you are you have already reached the minimis limit of the state aids. And yeah, we believe that for our companies, this will be a very important opportunity for at least understanding which is the new legislation that they need to face. I want to conclude this first round stressing the point that in Italy, but once again, I believe that this is a very common situation all over Europe. Our small and medium enterprises are not prepared enough. This morning in another event here at FIC, together with the Polytechnic of Milano, we have presented the report that we have published in Italy. We have interviewed more than 1,000 small and medium enterprises with a number of questions, and the results are, honestly speaking, a bit worrying, because once again, our companies, the smaller they are, the more unprepared. So even if we don't have a lot of money, we also believe that it's a starting point. Not all of the projects, they require a huge amount of money in order to be fulfilled. And I stop here. The most important thing from our point of view is the human factor. We need to help the employees of our small and medium enterprise to understand that they have a problem, and to be at least aware of some basic behaviors that can help them really, really a lot to protect themselves. Because once again, you can have the best technology, but if you don't know how to use it, and if you don't know which is exactly the problem, you will ever be, let me say, exposed to threats.
Thank you. So if I properly understood, you said that the secure project provide some help, some support to the small enterprises with a small amount of fund to progress and to improve their own capacity to deal with so it's a preparation, and you provide also all the framework knowledge of how to apply, what the references and so on. Is correct?
It is correct. We will set up a platform on which to find all of the possible documentation, and through that platform it will be possible to apply to some code that we will issue. The first one probably at the end of this year. We will issue at least 2 calls, but hopefully 3. We will see how it will go after the first one. And we will ask companies to answer to this call with projects. We will find 50% of the project up to 30,000 euros per project. And yeah, we will see what will happen. But the idea is to help them to begin a process, because once again, it's a process, a never-ending process. You always have to improve your security. But to begin this process, giving them all of the possible information and a small amount of money to start.
So basically the secure project is, let's say, a starting for preparing to be ready for the deadline on December 2027. Tommaso, during your introduction, you touched several times the question about the challenge for the company. So I ask both of you, actually, in which way this act is going to reshape the attitude of the company, how the market is going to be impacted, and what, if you can share it with us, what is the idea behind this new act in terms of preparing Europe, preparing the member states country to be more, let's say, prepared to the new challenges?
Yeah, thanks. For sure, I mean, yes, the act will impact the market practices. I mean, that goes without saying. It will be a very impactful piece of legislation that will change the way companies approach cybersecurity. In particular, it will put cybersecurity on the radar of the smaller actors, what Luca was talking about, and is making a lot of good points on the difficulties that certain companies will have in implementing the CRA and how we need to support them. And in fact, I mean, the Commission is supporting the Secure project, but a bunch of other financing work strands as well via the European Cybersecurity Competence Center to develop these kind of automated tools that can support SME compliance. But I think the key point here is that with the CRA, we are distributing responsibilities and across the supply chain. So we're placing the obligation to address cybersecurity and to put in place cybersecurity measures at every level and every step throughout the supply chain. So at the place where you have the most ability to comply, in the sense that therefore the manufacturer of a microchip will have a responsibility falling on their shoulder because they are the ones that can implement certain security measures on the microchip. Then it sells that microchip to an integrator. The integrator will build on top of the microchip and ensure certain security measures for the microchip. That additional product will then be sold again and implemented into a smartphone. And the manufacturer of the smartphone will have to do their fair share. So basically, we're just measures to transfer risk, to deal with risk first and foremost, and then to transfer the residual risk throughout the supply chain so that the final product is as secure as it can be. Of course, it will never be 100% secure, but the point is to minimize cybersecurity risks. And this will help customers, consumers, every one of us, reducing attack surfaces and reducing cybersecurity risks. But it will also have a huge impact on the critical entities that we rely on, the critical infrastructure, because the entities that fall under the NIS2 directive, because they will be able to rely on much more secure products in their procurement practices, and therefore deal with the risk management in a much simpler way thanks to more secure products being made available on the union market. So yes, it is definitely a reshape of the way the market currently works.
You want to add?
There is, from our point of view, a very important thing that needs to be understood. I mean, starting from January 2028, it will not be possible to sell in Europe products without certification. So we have directives such as the NIS2. They have huge obligations, but in some way, how to say, it's not so compelling to achieve all of the requirements that are needed. Of course, if you don't comply to all of the requirements, there can be consequences, there can be problems afterwards, but it's something that happens afterwards. The CRA is mandatory if you want to sell your product. So everyone will have this obligation starting from January 2021. And that's why this is so impactful. And as Tommaso was saying, it's not simply on the one that sells the product, but all of the supply chain that is behind is fully involved. Coming back to the report that we published together with Politecnico Milano was mentioning a minute ago, we have also information from what is happening year to year. And what we see is that awareness on the fact that cybersecurity is a serious issue is growing. What is not growing is the consequent actions that the companies should take. We see that we are stuck, that companies are not doing all of their homeworks. So sometimes we believe that, yes, we always say that in Europe we used to legislate a lot, and that's not useful. But what we see is that without a very strong commitment put in place, it's very, very difficult that our companies will, even if they understand that they have a problem, they are not yet convinced that they should take the consequent actions. So sometimes I believe that strong legislation is needed, and we live in a very complicated world. We are very vulnerable. Our ecosystem is based on small and medium enterprises. We cannot run the risk of having our industry stuck because of a ransomware or because of any possible attack that could happen and that will happen. Because now the problem is not if you will be attacked, it's only when will you be attacked. And our statistics show that more or less once every 3 years you are attacked. Okay, every company in 3 years will be attacked for sure. So we need to change. We need to change the situation, and we are fully aware of the problems, of the burden that we are putting on the shoulders of our companies. But at the same time, we need to be very, very clever, and we need to be very, very good in explaining them that it's not a burden, it's an opportunity, it's a way of producing higher quality products and to sell something that could be really appreciated all over the world. And so it's a business opportunity from my point of view, because in Europe we will produce the best software that can be found in the world. This is the objective, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, fully agree. I mean, I think that's definitely something very important to stress, is the opportunity to showcase the cybersecurity of your products. But I also wanted to react on the point that, of course, there will be smaller companies that will have a compliance burden. But the flip side of the coin is also that there will be a lot of SMEs that procure products, that buy products with digital elements, that will be able to rely on much more secure products and will be significantly less affected by cybersecurity attacks. So it's both sides, as you were saying.
So let's say that from what has been said so far, we have a deadline. We have some tools to start to implement, but from the other side, we have company, in the worst case, they don't know about that, or on the best case, they know, but they say, okay, we will see. There is one suggestion that you can provide to companies to start to work on that, and what are, according to you, suggestions that you can provide? Because from what you said, after the 27, the cybersecurity will be not the same.
Well, maybe one suggestion is that and this is getting a bit more into the detail of the implementation, but the European Commission has adopted a standardization request. So we've asked CENELEC and ETSI, the European standardization organizations, to develop standards that can help companies in their compliance journey and in supporting the implementation of the CRA. So it will not be just a guesswork of understanding what the CRA requires. So if you have the resources, the recommendation would be to get involved in that work, because it is important to have European companies, European experts there that can shape the way that standards are developed. And if you don't have the resources, it's still to be there, to monitor, to try and understand what's happening, to be part of the conversation. Reach out to us, reach out, if I may, to ACN, reach out to your member state authorities, because everyone is there trying to help raise awareness and just make this regulation not just a piece of paper, but something a bit more concrete.
Yeah, and elaborating on this, our report shows that in Italy, I don't know Europe, but it would be interesting to know, but in Italy, 48% of the companies of small and medium enterprise, they don't even know that there are fundings available through the ECCC. And this is another big problem. So what I can tell to our companies, pay attention to our website, the secure website, because we will publish this tender at the end of the year. But there are also other opportunities for being funded. The European Commission, through the ECCC, will make available fundings for projects for complying not only to the CRA, if I may, but also to NIS2 or to other legislations. So it's important that our companies take care and always have a look on the websites of the ECCC, of the ACN, of all of the NCC through Europe, because we are NCC in Italy, the House of Luxembourg is NCC in Luxembourg, we have our colleagues from Belgium that are NCCs, so all of the companies need to pay attention to their NCC, because there are funding opportunities. And we need to use this money at the best.
So basically, get involved. There are funds to be used for that. No? So I would like to thank you. We are almost finished, but we still have a couple of minutes if there is any question from the audience.
Hello, David, nice to meet you. I have a specific questions. I will translate a bit in different field, so I kept anonymization kind of. Like, let's say I'm a car maker and I do tailor-made car for specific customer, which are very different every time. Does the CRA apply or not? Let's say this car integrates, digital elements, but they're really tailor-made per customer.
Who wants to answer?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I maybe will translate it into a different example because cars happen to be excluded from the CRA because they're covered by a UN regulation. It's called UNR 155. So it's not a good example, but let's say that you are a manufacturer of a router that is customized for different use cases. Yes, the CRA would still apply. Of course, the essential requirements, if you look at the list, one, they're meant to be risk-based. And two, obviously, if some essential requirements are not applicable to your specific use case, they're just not applicable. So you would have to justify why they're not applicable, but they're not applicable. And there is also certain provisions that explicitly say that, for example, you need to deliver the product with a secure by default configuration unless in business-to-business context it is agreed between the manufacturer and the customer that you don't need that secure by default configuration, and maybe it's a different configuration. So there are leeways, but the CRA does apply, yes.
And if I may, considering, and I close here, in Italy we have a very similar legislation that applies only to national securities. And when there are this kind of situation, the suggestion that we give is, if you believe that in some way your product will be used in a risk scenario in which CRA will apply, certify the product. It's the easier thing to do.
Thank you very much. I think we are done, and I would like really to give a big applause to our
Yes, big
guests.
applause, yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.